Mountain Man 1, worthless, wife at poker table. Her secret will leave you breathless. Calder Roke did not like crowded rooms, but the trading post had the only warm lights for 50 kilometers in any direction. Outside, the world was a long stretch of blue-white snow and black stone, with wind that could bite through metal if you stayed still too long. Inside, the air smelled like oil, cooked beans, wet coats, and the sharp sting of cheap disinfectant. People and non-people talked over each other in a dozen languages, all of them loud, all of them tired. Calder stepped in, shook snow from his boots, and kept his hood up. He was tall, broad in the shoulders, and dressed like the mountains had shaped him. Thick jacket, patched gloves, heavy belt with tools, and the calm eyes of someone who measured danger before it moved. He carried no visible weapon, but that meant nothing on this planet. Every miner here had a blade somewhere. Every trader had a hidden shock pistol. The world itself was the biggest weapon. He walked to the counter, set down a small metal case, and waited while the bartender looked him over. "Fuel cells," Calder said. The bartender's eyes flicked to the case. "Real, real," Calder answered. The bartender scanned it, then nodded. "You're Roke, Mountain Man." Calder did not correct him. Names changed fast out here. He only asked, "How much for 2 cells?" "Too much," the bartender said. "Storm season. Supply ships don't like coming in right now." Calder's jaw tightened. He hated bargaining, not because he was bad at it, but because it always felt like a game where the rules kept changing. He preferred honest work. Bring a part, get a part. Fix a generator, earn a meal. Out in the mountains, the wind did not bargain. It simply took what it could. He was about to turn away when he saw the table near the back. It was not a normal table. It was wide, low, and lit by a hanging lamp that cast a clean circle of light. Around it sat miners in dirty suits, 2 off-world merchants with smooth clothes, and 3 aliens Calder had seen before but never spoken to. One of them stood out. The alien wore a cloak with stitched silver lines and held himself like he owned the whole building. His skin was dark and glossy like wet stone, and his eyes were pale and cold. A card game, Calder thought. He did not gamble for fun. But he had learned something on hard planets. Sometimes a foolish game was the fastest path to supplies. A man near the table called out, "Hey." "Roke, you got luck in those hands? Come take a seat." Calder did not answer right away. He watched the players. He watched the way their fingers moved, the way their eyes watched each other, and the way the alien noble smiled too often. Calder had seen smiles like that before. Smiles that said, "I already won, you just don't know it yet." He moved closer. The miner who invited him grinned with missing teeth. "We're playing small at first. Trade chips, tools, rations, nothing crazy." The alien noble tapped the table. "Nothing crazy," he repeated in a smooth, careful voice, like he had practiced human words and found them amusing. Calder sat down without taking his coat off. He placed a few items on the table: a sealed pack of medical gel, a spool of high-grade wire, and a small solar battery. Not much, but enough to buy a seat. The dealer was a tired-looking woman with a metal arm. She shuffled in a way that made Calder feel like she respected the cards more than the people. The first hands were easy. Calder played quiet. He watched. The miners took risks. The merchants laughed. The alien noble lost small, won small, and always acted bored. Calder's pile grew slowly, not because he was lucky, but because he did not chase wins. He waited. He folded when it was safe. He called when he had reason. He let other people burn themselves out. After an hour, the air around the table changed. It got tighter, heavier. Someone pushed in a power tool. Someone else offered a case of cartridges. The merchant in the smooth coat put down a data crystal and said it held a map to a hidden ore seam. Calder did not care about ore. He cared about fuel cells. The alien noble leaned back and looked around the table like a king checking his court. "You humans like stories," he said. "You like to feel brave. I will make this more interesting." No one spoke, but everyone listened. The noble made a small gesture. A guard, standing near the wall, stepped forward. The guard was not human. It was tall and thin, with long arms and a mask that hid its face. Behind it came a figure in a plain gray cloak, head down, hands together. Calder's eyes narrowed. The figure walked like someone trying not to take up space. Their steps were careful, not weak exactly. Just controlled, like they had learned that the wrong movement could cause trouble. The noble spoke again, his voice mild. "This one is an attachment, a contract-bound assistant. She is, how do you say, unwanted, worthless to my house. I grew tired of feeding her." The miners stared. The merchants looked uncomfortable. Calder felt heat rise in his chest, sharp and sudden. The dealer's metal fingers paused mid-shuffle. "We don't play people here," she said flatly. The noble spread his hands. "Not people," he corrected. "Property by my laws?" Calder's stomach turned. He had heard about off-world contracts that trapped beings in endless service. It was not always called slavery because people liked clean words. But the result was the same. One side had power, the other side had no exit. The figure in the gray cloak lifted her head for a moment. Calder saw a face, pale under the light, with eyes that seemed too bright. Her features were not fully human, but close enough that the differences felt like a whisper rather than a shout. The eyes did not beg. They did not plead, they simply watched, calm and tired at the same time. The miner with missing teeth muttered, "That's not right." The noble's smile sharpened. "Then do not win her," he said. "Simple." Calder's fingers curled against the table. He could walk away. He could take his small winnings and buy half a fuel cell, maybe, if the bartender was feeling kind. He could go back to his mountain shelter and survive another week on melted snow and hunted meat. But the idea of leaving that figure here as a prize made Calder feel sick. The dealer looked around, waiting for someone to end it. Nobody did. Fear held them, fear of the noble's guard, fear of off-world trouble, fear of losing access to trade routes. Calder took a slow breath. He kept his voice steady. "You said contract-bound?" The noble nodded. "Yes," Calder asked. "If someone wins, the contract transfers?" The noble's eyes gleamed. "Of course, it is a legal item." Calder stared at the gray-cloaked figure. Her hands were held together, but not by visible chains. That did not matter. Invisible chains were often stronger. Calder said, "Then I'm in." The miner beside him whispered, "Roke, don't. That noble's got tricks." Calder did not look away from the table. "Then we'll see if my hands have tricks too." The stakes rose fast. Calder pushed in his best items, a compact heater coil, a set of precision cutters, and a small case of spare filters. Things he used to stay alive. Across from him, the merchants pushed in credit chips. The miners pushed in weapons and mining access codes. The noble pushed in like he was tossing crumbs. The dealer dealt. Calder's first cards were nothing special. He kept his face blank. He watched the noble's fingers, the small movements. The noble was confident, but he was not careless. His guard stood behind him like a shadow that had learned to breathe. The round went on. Bets rose. Calder kept thinking of the mountains, of the way a storm did not care about pride. He reminded himself to play like the storm, calm, patient, and exact. On the final turn, the table felt silent. Even the noisy trading post around them seemed far away. Calder held his breath and made his choice. He pushed his pile forward. "All in," he said. The miner swore under his breath. One merchant folded. The other merchant hesitated, then called. The noble's smile widened. "All in," the noble echoed, as if it was the funniest phrase he had ever heard. The dealer laid down the last card. Calder looked at his hand. For a heartbeat, he felt nothing. Then he saw it, a clean line. The kind of win that did not happen often. The kind that made some people believe in luck again. He laid his cards down. The merchant stared, stunned. The miner let out a sound like a laugh and a groan at once. The noble's smile froze. The dealer looked at the cards, then at Calder. "Winner," she said. The room erupted, not with joy exactly, but with loud shock. People stood, leaned in, argued. The noble did not move. His pale eyes were suddenly hard. "That is impossible," the noble said softly. Calder met his gaze. "But it happened." The noble's guard shifted like it wanted to do something. Calder's hand drifted toward his belt, not for a weapon, but for a small device clipped near his tools. A flare beacon. If trouble started, it would light the whole room and call every miner with a gun. The dealer stood up straighter. "Rules are rules," she said. "You offered the contract, he won it." The noble's face twitched. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a thin strip of material like a paper, but not paper. It glowed faintly with hidden writing. He slapped it on the table. "Take it," he said, voice sharp. "Take the worthless thing and go back to your rocks." Calder did not move right away. "The contract says she is free to leave if the holder releases it." The noble laughed, but it sounded strained. "Read it yourself, mountain man." Calder did not trust him. He took out a small scanner and ran it over the strip. The device hummed, translated, and displayed the key terms in simple words. Contract transfer, valid, holder rights, extensive, release clause, present but buried. Penalty fees, large, but only if the contract was broken, not released. Calder's eyes narrowed. It was a cage with a door. The noble had assumed nobody would pay attention long enough to find the handle. Calder pressed his thumb to the strip. His scanner beeped again. A prompt appeared, authorize release. He looked at the figure in gray. She stood still watching him, her bright eyes steady. For the first time, something flickered in her face. Not hope, not yet. Something like careful focus, as if she was waiting to see what kind of person he was. Calder hit authorize release. The strip flashed once, then went dark. The noble's lips pulled back, showing something sharp. You waste a valuable asset. Calder stood. I didn't win an asset, he said. I won a problem you brought into this room, and I'm ending it. The dealer nodded once like she approved, but she said nothing. Calder turned to the gray-cloaked figure. You're free, he told her. He kept his voice plain. You don't owe me anything. You can stay here or you can leave, your choice. For a long moment, she did not move. Then she spoke, her voice quiet and clear. Choice, she repeated as if tasting the word. Yes, Calder said. Her gaze shifted to the noble, then to the door, then back to Calder. The trading post suddenly felt like a trap. Too many eyes, too many corners, too many risks. Outside, the wind howled. A deep, distant sound like the planet itself was angry. Calder watched the noble's guard. The guard's posture was tense, but it did not act. Not yet. Calder sensed the noble was deciding whether causing a fight here was worth the damage to his reputation and trade. The noble's smile returned, thinner than before. Do you think you have done something noble? He asked. She will bring you trouble. She is a bad omen. That is why she is worthless, Calder shrugged. Then I guess I like trouble. He nodded toward the door. If you want to come, he said to the gray-cloaked woman, I can get you to a safer place. There's a storm coming. This post won't be safe if the wind gets worse. She looked past him as if listening to something he could not hear. Her eyes unfocused for a second, and Calder felt the hair on his arms rise. The lights above the table flickered. A low vibration ran through the floorboards, so soft that most people did not notice. Calder noticed. He had lived on this planet long enough to feel its moods. The gray-cloaked woman blinked, then met his eyes. I will come, she said. Calder did not smile. He simply nodded like this was a normal decision in a normal night. He picked up his winnings, mostly tools and credits, and left the rest. None of it mattered as much as getting out before the noble changed his mind. As they walked, people stepped aside. Some looked at Calder with respect, others with fear, and some with the sad curiosity of those who had wanted to help but could not. At the door, Calder paused and glanced back. The noble sat very still, watching them go, his pale eyes full of cold calculation. His guard's head tilted slightly like it was recording every detail. Calder pushed the door open. The wind slammed into them like a wall. Snow spun in wild circles under the floodlights. The sky was dark but not fully night. This planet's clouds had layers that hid the stars and made the world feel small. Calder pulled his hood tighter and stepped into the storm without hesitation. The gray-cloaked woman followed. The moment she crossed the threshold, something strange happened. The wind around them shifted, not stopping, but changing shape. The snow that had been striking Calder's face suddenly swirled away from her, like it did not want to touch her. Calder felt it, subtle but real. He looked at her again, sharper this time. What are you? He asked, not unkindly but carefully. She held her cloak close, eyes bright in the storm light. I am Salith, she said. That's your name, Calder said. I mean, why would he call you worthless? Salith did not answer right away. She stared into the blowing snow, as if she could see through it, as if she could see the mountains where Calder lived, the old shelter he had built from salvaged panels, the hidden cave where he stored fuel and food. Finally, she said very softly, because I do not belong to him, because I belong to this world. Calder felt his breath catch, not from the cold, but from the way she said it, like it was not a metaphor, like it was a fact. Somewhere far above, engines rumbled. A ship passing overhead, hidden by cloud. Calder could not see it, but he heard it, and he did not like the sound. He started walking, boots crunching in deep snow. We need to move, he said. My place is up in the ridge line, hard to reach. If anyone follows, they'll have trouble. Salith kept pace beside him, her steps sure. She did not stumble. She did not ask for help. For someone who had looked like a prisoner inside, she moved outside like she had been waiting for open ground. As they left the trading post behind, the lights faded into a weak glow. The storm grew louder, and the strange feeling in Calder's chest grew too, like he had picked up a rock that was not a rock at all, but the tip of something much bigger. He did not know what Salith's secret truly was yet. He only knew this. The moment he released that contract, the galaxy had noticed. The storm grew stronger the higher they climbed. The trading post disappeared behind a wall of blowing snow and dark shapes that might have been rocks or might have been shadows. Calder did not look back again. He focused on the narrow path he had cut into the mountain over many seasons. It was not marked. It was not safe. But it was his. Salith walked beside him without slipping. Her steps were light but not weak. Calder noticed how she adjusted her balance before the wind even hit, like she felt it coming through the ground or the air itself. After a long climb, the rock face opened into a shallow valley hidden between tall ridges. Calder reached a section of stone that looked like any other and pressed his palm against it. The panel slid open with a soft hum, revealing a dark entrance. "Inside," he said. Salith stepped in first. The air changed at once. The storm's roar became a dull echo. Calder followed and sealed the door behind them. The shelter was not large, but it was warm. A small generator powered soft lights, a heater, and a water recycler. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tools, food packs, spare parts, and rolled blankets. A simple table stood in the center, scratched from years of use. Salith stopped near the door and slowly turned in a circle, taking it all in. Her eyes moved carefully, like she was mapping the space in her mind. "This is your home," she said. Calder nodded. "It's enough." She reached out and touched the wall. Her fingers rested on the metal surface for a moment longer than needed. Calder felt a strange tension in the air, like the room itself was holding its breath. He cleared his throat. "You can take the bench. I'll get you something warm to drink." Salith hesitated, then sat. Calder poured heated water into 2 cups and dropped in a pack of bitter leaf tea. He handed one to her. She took it with both hands. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the storm howled against the mountain. Inside, the shelter hummed softly. Calder studied her when she was not looking. Her cloak was thin, not made for this kind of cold. Her skin had a faint shimmer under the lights, like there was something beneath it that did not belong to flesh alone. When she moved, it was smooth, but sometimes too smooth, like water flowing instead of muscle pulling. "You don't have to stay," Calder said. "If you want to go back to the post when the storm passes, I can walk you down." Salith shook her head. "They will not protect me there." "Who will?" Calder asked. She looked at him. "I do not know yet." Calder accepted that answer. He was used to not knowing things. The mountains taught patience. He stood and moved to a corner where a small screen showed outside feeds from hidden sensors. The storm filled the view, but something else flickered through the noise. A shadow, a shape too straight to be natural. Calder's jaw tightened. He zoomed in. A ship hovered far above the ridges, barely visible through cloud and snow. It was not a trade vessel. It moved too carefully, too quietly. "They followed," he muttered. Salith stood slowly. "The noble does not hunt alone." Calder turned. "You knew this would happen." "Yes," she said. "It always does." The lights flickered again, not from the storm this time. The floor vibrated low and deep, like something far below had shifted. Calder felt it in his bones. "That wasn't them." Salith closed her eyes. She placed both hands on the floor. Her breath slowed. Calder did not know why, but he stepped back. The vibration grew stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling. The shelves rattled. The hum of the generator changed pitch. Salith opened her eyes. They were brighter now, like stars reflected in water. "I did not want to wake it yet," she said softly, "but they will not stop." "Wake what?" Calder asked. She stood. The air around her felt warm, even though the shelter was cool. "This world is not asleep," she said. "It is waiting." A sharp sound cut through the storm. Calder's screen flashed. The hovering ship released smaller shapes that dropped toward the mountains. "Drones," Calder said. "Armed." He grabbed a rifle from the wall and checked the power cell. He had fought beasts, storms, and desperate miners, but drones were different. They did not fear. They did not make mistakes. Salith walked toward the door. "Don't," Calder said. "You step out there, they'll see you." She turned back. "They already do." The door shuddered. A beam of light cut through the seams. Calder raised the rifle. "Get behind me." Salith shook her head. "This is not your fight alone." The beam vanished. The mountain outside roared, not with wind, but with stone cracking. Calder felt like the ground was breathing. The shelter door slid open on its own. Cold air rushed in, but the storm did not enter. The snow and wind curved away from the doorway, like an invisible wall stood there. Outside, the ridge glowed faintly, lines of light running through the rock like veins. Calder stared. "That's not normal." Salith stepped forward, her cloak lifting in a wind that did not touch him. It is now. The first drone appeared above the ridge, black and sharp against the gray sky. It aimed a weapon. The mountain answered. A column of stone rose from the ground, fast and smooth, knocking the drone out of the air. It shattered against the rocks below. More drones followed. The ground moved again, ridges shifted, snow slid away as the land reshaped itself. Paths closed, walls formed. The mountain became a maze. Calder stood frozen, rifle lowered. He had lived here for years and he had never seen this. He felt small, like a guest in a house that was not truly his. Salith raised one hand. The air hummed. High above, the ship's engines flared. It tried to pull back, but the clouds thickened, swirling into a spiral. The sky itself seemed to press down. Calder found his voice. "You're doing this," she nodded. "I am asking, the world is answering." The noble's ship fired. Bright lines cut through the clouds, striking the mountain. The rock glowed, but it did not break. Calder watched in awe and fear as the land fought back. The ship turned, trying to flee. The ground below split, releasing a burst of light that shot upward like a spear. It did not hit the ship, but it came close enough to make the message clear. The ship vanished into the storm. Silence followed, heavy and deep. The mountain settled. The glowing lines faded. The storm returned to its normal, angry howl. Salith lowered her hand. She swayed. Calder rushed forward and caught her before she fell. She felt warm, too warm. He laid her on the bench. Her breathing was slow, shallow. "What did you do?" he whispered. Her eyes opened a little. "I listened," she said, "and I spoke." Calder sat beside her, heart pounding. "You could have told me." She managed a weak smile. "Would you have believed me?" He thought of the stone rising like a living thing, the sky bending, the world moving with purpose. "Maybe," he said. "I don't know." She closed her eyes again. Hours passed. The storm outside faded into a low whisper. Calder did not sleep. He watched the door. He watched the screens. He watched Salith breathe. When she finally sat up, the light outside had changed. The clouds thinned, revealing a pale sun. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" Calder asked. "For bringing this to your home." Calder looked around the shelter. The walls were scratched. The floor was cracked in one place, but it still stood. "I brought you here," he said. "That makes it my problem, too." She studied him. "Most would have turned me away. Most don't like seeing someone treated like a thing," Calder said. She looked down at her hands. "I am not a thing, but I am not only a person either." Calder waited. "My people are called world-bound," she said. "We are born with a link to living worlds, not every planet, only those that can hear." "Planets can hear?" Calder asked. "Some can," she said. "Most are silent, some are sleeping, a few are awake." "And this one?" Calder asked. Salith placed her palm on the floor. "This one has been awake for a long time. It was lonely." Calder felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "The noble wanted to use you," he said. "Yes," she replied. "They all do. A world-bound can turn a planet into a shield or a weapon. Empires rise and fall over that power." Calder stood and paced. "So now they know I'm here." "They knew when you freed me," Salith said. "They will come again, not just the noble, others." Calder stopped. "Then you need to leave. I can get you to a human station." "Somewhere crowded, somewhere harder to attack." Salith shook her head. "Crowds make it easier, fewer worlds, more watchers." "Then what do you want?" Calder asked. She looked at him, steady and calm. "I want to stay with this world with you." Calder laughed once, short and sharp. "You don't even know me." "I know what you chose," she said. "That is enough to begin." Calder rubbed his face. The mountains outside felt different now. Not just rock and snow, but something alive, something that had accepted him as part of its space. He looked at the screens again. Far away, faint signals flickered, ships at the edge of range, watching. The galaxy was not done with them. "What happens if they bring an army?" Calder asked. Salith stood and walked to the door. She opened it. The wind brushed past her, gentle now. "The world will decide," she said, "and so will humanity." Calder stepped beside her and looked out at the wide, wild land he had called home. For the first time, he wondered if he had not just lived on this planet. He wondered if, somehow, he had been chosen by it. And far beyond the mountains, far beyond the storm, signals raced through space, carrying one simple truth. A human had stood between a world and those who wanted to own it. The days after the first attack felt quiet on the surface, but Calder could sense the tension in the air, like a storm waiting beyond the horizon. The mountain still stood tall and calm, but now he knew it was more than stone and ice. It was listening. Salith spent much of her time outside. She walked along the ridges, touched the rocks, and stood in the wind with her eyes closed. Calder watched from a distance at first, worried she might collapse again, but she grew stronger with each passing day. The color returned to her face, and the strange light beneath her skin glowed softer, steadier. Calder kept working. He repaired sensors, extended his signal range, and set up old defense drones he had salvaged from a crashed ship years ago. They were not powerful, but they were eyes and ears, and right now that mattered more than weapons. One morning, as the pale sun rose over the frozen peaks, Calder's screen lit up with a warning tone. Multiple signals, not ships this time, a ground team. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. Salith stood near a cliff edge, her cloak fluttering gently. She already knew. "They come on foot," she said. "They do not want to scare the world again. They think they can take me quietly." Calder frowned. "That's not going to happen." He raised his binoculars and scanned the lower slopes. He spotted them soon enough. 5 figures moving carefully between rocks and snowdrifts. They were not miners. Their armor was clean, their steps trained. "Mercenaries," Calder said. "Professional," Salith nodded. "They work for many flags. Credits speak louder than laws," Calder thought fast. "If the mountain moves again, they'll report it. That will draw bigger ships, bigger weapons." "I know," Salith said. "That is why I must not wake it fully." "Then we handle this the human way," Calder said. She looked at him. "What is the human way?" He smiled slightly. "Stubborn, clever, and personal." Calder led the mercenaries into a trap without them ever knowing it was one. He triggered old mining charges buried under the snow, not to explode, but to release thick clouds of dust and ice. Visibility dropped to nothing. The mercenaries spread out, shouting to each other through their helmet radios. Calder moved through the haze like a shadow. He used the terrain, sliding down slopes, climbing over ridges, and always staying behind them. Salith stayed high on the cliffs. She did not move the mountain. She whispered to it. Small things happened. Stones rolled at just the right moment. Snow shifted under mercenary boots. A sudden gust of wind knocked one of them off balance. One by one, Calder disarmed them. He stunned the first with a shock baton taken from an old security crate. The second tripped into a snowbank that collapsed into a shallow ice pit. The third panicked and fired wildly, hitting nothing but air. The last 2 realized too late that they were not hunting. They were being hunted. When the dust cleared, 5 mercenaries lay tied and sitting in the snow, their weapons stacked in a neat pile. Calder stood in front of them, breathing hard. "You're a long way from a legal contract," he said. "Who sent you?" One of them spat. "Doesn't matter, others will come." Salith stepped forward. The mercenaries stiffened when they saw her. Something about her made even trained fighters uneasy. "They will," she said calmly, "but not like this." She knelt and placed her hand on the ground. Calder tensed, but the mountain did not rise. Instead, the air changed. A low hum spread across the slopes like a deep voice speaking through stone. The mercenaries froze. Their eyes went wide. "What is that?" one whispered. "This world," Salith said, "is protected." Calder watched as their fear turned into something else. Not panic, respect. He released them. "Go back," he said. "Tell whoever sent you that this planet is not for sale, and neither is she." They did not argue. They left quickly, glancing back more than once. That night, Calder and Salith sat by a small heater, sharing a simple meal. "You didn't have to scare them like that," Calder said. "I didn't scare them," Salith replied. "I introduced them." Calder laughed softly. The next day, a message came through the open channels. It was broadcast on every frequency in dozens of languages. "This is a coalition vessel. We request communication with the human known as Calder Roke." Calder stared at the screen. "That escalated fast." Salith stood beside him. "They are careful. They come with words first." Calder opened the channel. A face appeared. Human, older, wearing a formal uniform with symbols Calder did not recognize. "Mr. Roke," the officer said. "My name is Admiral Hensley. I represent the Outer Systems Coalition. We are aware you are sheltering a world-bound envoy." Calder crossed his arms. "She's not sheltering, she's staying." The Admiral nodded slowly. "You may not understand the danger. Beings like her can change the balance of power in entire regions of space." "I understand people want to use her," Calder said. "I understand that just fine." The Admiral's eyes softened slightly. "We want to protect her, and this situation will attract forces that do not care about your life or this world." Salith leaned closer to the screen. "Protection often looks like a cage." The Admiral paused. "Sometimes it does, but we offer choice. Come with us. We can take you both to a safe system." Calder shook his head. This is my home. And this world is mine, Salith added. The Admiral sighed. Then you leave us little room. Leave us room, Calder replied. We're not asking for control, we're asking for space. The signal cut. The sky did not stay quiet for long. Ships began to appear at the edge of the atmosphere, not attacking. Watching, some were human, some were not. Calder felt like a man standing on a hill while giants gathered around him. Salith stood tall beside him. They are curious, she said, and afraid. Good, Calder said. They should be. The mountain shifted slightly beneath their feet like it agreed. Word spread across human networks. A man on a frozen world had stood up to off-world powers. A planet had answered him. Ships from human colonies arrived, not warships. Supply vessels, medical ships, news drones people wanted to see. Calder did not like crowds, but he found himself standing in front of cameras more than once. Why are you doing this? A reporter asked him. He thought for a moment. Because no one should be owned, he said. Not a person, not a world. That line traveled far. Salith watched humanity in a way she never had before. She listened to the signals, the stories, the arguments, the support. You are loud, she told Calder one night. He grinned. Yeah, we get that a lot. You fight each other, she said. You disagree, you make mistakes. Also true, Calder said. But when something is wrong, she continued, you stand together, not all of you, but enough. Calder looked out at the growing lights of ships in the sky. Sometimes enough is all you need. The noble's ship returned 3 days later. It did not come alone. Behind it came a fleet. The sky darkened with metal and firepower. Calder felt the weight of it press down on his chest. Salith closed her eyes. They are tired of asking. Calder grabbed her hand. Then we remind them who they're dealing with. He opened a channel and broadcast on every frequency he could reach. This is Calder Roke. You are entering human space near a human world. State your intent. The noble's face appeared calm and cold. I am reclaiming stolen property. Calder's voice hardened. She's not property, she's a person, and this is not your world. The noble smiled. Then you will learn what happens when small beings stand in front of large forces. Calder cut the channel. He turned to Salith. Can the world stop them? Salith looked at the mountains, the sky, the deep ground beneath them. Yes, she said, but it will change forever. Calder swallowed. And you? I will change with it, she replied. The first shot did not come from the fleet. It came from a human ship. A small frigate moved forward, placing itself between the fleet and the planet. Then another. Then dozens. A wall of human vessels formed in the sky. A message echoed across the channels. This world is under human protection. The noble's smile vanished. The galaxy watched as humans did something unexpected. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They stood. Calder felt his throat tighten. Salith placed her hand on the ground. The mountain hummed softly, not in anger, but in welcome. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. The standoff lasted hours. Then slowly, one by one, ships in the noble's fleet turned away. The noble's ship lingered last like a predator forced to leave a kill behind. This is not over, the noble said. Calder nodded. Most things worth doing are. The fleet vanished into the dark. The sky cleared. The world remained. In the days that followed, something new began. Human settlements sent requests, not demands. Scientists asked questions, not orders. Salith spoke to some of them carefully, teaching them how to listen to worlds instead of trying to command them. Calder watched it all from his ridge, still a mountain man, still a man who liked quiet. But the quiet was different now. It was the quiet of something that had been heard. One night, as stars finally broke through the clouds, Calder and Salith sat together on the edge of the cliff. What happens next? Calder asked. Salith looked at the wide, living land below. Next, we show the galaxy that strength does not have to mean control. Calder nodded. Sounds like a human thing to do, she smiled at him. It sounds like a shared thing. Far away, in places Calder would never visit, people began to speak of a frozen world where a man and a planet stood together. The calm after the standoff lasted only a few days. The sky over the mountains cleared, the storm passed, and sunlight reflected off snow in bright, almost blinding bursts. Calder thought the world might return to the quiet life he had always known. He was wrong. The first sign was a message, faint and coded, delivered through hidden channels only someone with knowledge of survival and trade networks could catch. It was from the Outer Systems Coalition, but not an invitation this time. It was a warning. They are organizing, Calder said aloud, speaking more to the mountain than anyone else. Salith, sitting across from him on a stack of blankets, looked at him with a calm certainty he could not match. "They always do," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was tension under it. "They think that if they come together, they can take control." Calder rubbed his face. "We fought the noble, the mercenaries, now a coalition fleet. How many more will come before they learn not to touch you?" Salith leaned forward. "They will come, they always come, but this time humanity is no longer small or slow to respond. They will have to negotiate. That is new for them." Calder's brow furrowed. "Negotiate?" "Yes," she said. "Humans as a species can surprise. You do not only fight with weapons. You fight with ideas, alliances, determination. Those things are harder to predict than a storm or a drone." Calder stood and looked out over the ridge. The mountains below were calm, white, and deceptively empty. He felt the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on him. The mercenaries, the noble, the fleet, the standoff. He had survived them, yes, but each step had brought new risks. "They'll come in greater numbers next time," he said. "We need a plan." Salith rose and joined him. She placed her hand on the ground. "The plan is already in motion. The mountain listens. It waits. It understands strategy far faster than you or I. We do not control it. We guide it." Calder looked at her. "Guide it how?" She smiled faintly. "By making choices that reflect your humanity, by showing that humans are not conquerors. That is what they will see when they arrive, not just strength, but something else, something surprising." Calder rubbed his chin. "So far, they've only seen stubbornness and luck." "Not luck," Salith said. "Judgment, the right choice at the right moment, that is what they respect." Calder nodded slowly. He could see the logic in her words. The fleet had retreated not because they feared power alone, but because they recognized that humans acted differently than empires expected. Not everything was predictable with logic and force. Sometimes it required understanding, patience, and courage. They spent the next day preparing. Calder worked on reinforcing the shelter, setting traps for any ground teams that might approach, and testing sensors he had placed along the ridge lines. Salith stayed outside, whispering to the mountain, tracing her hands across rocks and standing in the wind with eyes closed. Calder did not understand everything she did, but he trusted it. That night the sky shimmered with signals. Light from distant ships reached them faintly, some human, some alien. Calder watched the blinking signals, trying to imagine what plans the galaxy was making in response to their stand. Salith moved closer. "They are curious. They are learning from you." Calder raised an eyebrow. "From me? From the human who stood with a living world rather than trying to claim it," she said. "Humans are unpredictable when guided by principle rather than greed. They are learning that." The next morning, a small human delegation arrived. Not soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and engineers. They were cautious, their movements slow and deliberate. They had ships parked on distant ridges, but they did not block the sky. They did not threaten the mountain. Calder greeted them with a simple nod. "You're not here to fight," he said. "No," the lead scientist replied. "We are here to observe, to learn, to ensure that the mountain and its envoy are not harmed." Salith studied them quietly. "Observe carefully," she said. "Do not try to control." The scientist nodded. "We will follow your instructions." Calder looked at her. "And if they do," she shrugged lightly, "then the mountain speaks louder, but humans may not need to listen to that lesson twice." Over the next few days, the coalition vessels kept their distance. Small shuttles approached the ridges but did not land. The mountain remained silent, though Calder could feel the subtle vibrations through the ground, like a heartbeat beneath his feet. Salith moved freely through the snow, interacting with the rocks, the ice, and the air itself. Calder followed cautiously, making sure she remained safe, but also trying to learn from her. He realized that she was not only connected to the mountain, but to the whole environment, winds, snow, ice, and even the faint signals that flickered from orbit. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant peaks, Calder asked her, "How do you do it? How do you make the mountain respond?" Salith looked at him, calm and direct. "I do not make it respond. I listen, I understand. Then it decides what is best. My role is to guide, not command." Calder thought about that. Humans had always tried to command, to control. But here in the mountains, he saw that control was not always the answer. Patience, observation, and respect could yield results far beyond strength. As night fell, they returned to the shelter. Calder prepared a small meal, simple and warm, while Salith monitored the surrounding ridges from the shelter's open sensors. "More ships are coming," she said softly. They will test your resolve, not with weapons but with pressure. Will you yield or stand firm? Calder handed her a cup of tea. We'll see. The following morning, the first wave of new arrivals approached. This time, it was clear they were organized, prepared for diplomacy or threat. They were larger, faster, and carried more advanced scanning equipment. Calder watched them carefully, noting their approach, their formation, and the signals they emitted. Salith placed her hand on the floor. Do not fear them. Fear clouds judgment. Calder nodded, though his stomach churned with tension. The first team reached the edge of the ridge, stopping short of entering the mountain's defended zone. Calder stepped forward and activated the broadcast signal, sending a clear message. This is Calder Roke, he said firmly. You are approaching a world-bound envoy and her living world. Step forward only with respect. Any act of aggression will be met with consequences. Observe or leave, your choice. The humans paused, exchanging glances through communication devices. Then one stepped forward, raising a hand in a gesture of peace. We come to negotiate, the voice said. We are here to ensure protection and to understand your needs. Calder glanced at Salith. She nodded slightly and he gestured them closer. Speak, he said. Over several hours, they discussed terms. Calder insisted that Salith's autonomy remain intact. She would not be moved against her will. The mountain's responses were taken into account. Any settlements on the planet would respect the envoy and the land. The coalition representatives were cautious but curious. They began to understand that strength was not measured by force alone. They had underestimated the humans' ability to command respect through principle, strategy, and careful negotiation. By the evening, agreements were made. Calder and Salith returned to the shelter, exhausted but satisfied. The coalition vessels left the immediate area, sending only observation drones to monitor from a distance. Salith looked at the ridge lines. You surprised them, she said. Humans can be stubborn, but when guided by purpose, they are formidable. Calder leaned back, looking at the stars emerging over the peaks. We did what we had to do, not just with force, but with patience and strategy. That's what makes humans human, she smiled faintly. Yes. And now they will think twice before underestimating you. In the following days, news spread across human networks. Stories told of Calder Roke and the mountain, of the envoy he had protected, and of the humans who stood with a living world rather than trying to control it. The galaxy watched, and for the first time it began to consider that humans might not only explore worlds, they could also respect and protect them. Calder and Salith walked the ridge one morning, quiet except for the crunch of snow beneath their boots. What happens if they come back? Calder asked. They will, Salith said, but humanity has shown them something new. That is more powerful than force. Calder looked at her, then at the mountains, and finally at the horizon where the sun lit the peaks in gold. Then we wait, he said, and we stand. The wind rose gently around them, carrying a subtle vibration through the ground. Calder could feel it in his bones, the mountain, alive and aware, standing with them. And far above, where the stars stretched across the sky, humanity's reputation began to change. Not as conquerors, not as traitors, but as guardians, allies of living worlds and their envoys. Salith looked at him, eyes bright. You have done more than defend me. You have defended a principle. That is rare, Calder shrugged. I just do what I think is right, she nodded. That is enough to make you remarkable. Together, they watched the sunrise over the mountains, knowing that the galaxy was taking note, that the future would remember the humans who stood with worlds, and that the next challenge would come. But they would face it as one. The morning air was crisp, the wind carrying the sharp scent of snow and stone. Calder stood at the edge of the ridge, looking out over the mountains that had become more than home. They were allies now, silent but powerful, guided by Salith's presence. The peaks stretched endlessly, white and gray and silver under the pale sunlight, and Calder felt a deep pulse through his boots, the heartbeat of the living mountain. Salith stood beside him, quiet, her cloak fluttering slightly. She had been awake long before him, moving among the rocks, listening, feeling. Her eyes, pale and bright, seemed to shimmer as if reflecting something beyond the mountains, beyond the world. Calder never tired of watching her, never tired of seeing someone so still and so alive at the same time. They will come again, she said softly, almost as if she were reading his thoughts. I know, Calder replied, but we are ready. I think humanity has made its point. Not all of humanity, Salith corrected gently, but enough to matter, enough to change the story. Calder's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the faint glint of approaching ships reflected in the snow. Not all of them human, but a mix of vessels, large and small, cautiously moving forward. Some were observation ships, some were military grade, though the lines between them were blurred. "They watch," Calder said, "trying to guess what we'll do next." "They always try," Saleth said. "But now they know humans do not act like other species. You are guided by something larger than conquest. That surprises them. That makes them hesitate." Calder thought about the past weeks. The mercenaries, the noble, the coalition vessels, the negotiations. All of it had been a test, though he had never seen it that way until now. The world had taught him patience, the envoy had taught him awareness, and together they had sent a message that reverberated farther than they could see. "We've made allies," he said, "even if they are cautious." "Not just allies," Saleth said. "They have learned to listen." "That is rarer than loyalty," Calder nodded. "It will have to be. The galaxy does not forget easily, and there will always be those who want power without care." Saleth's gaze shifted to the ridge below. The living world hummed softly, like a constant undercurrent beneath the wind and snow. Calder could feel it, too, a steady reassurance that they were not alone. "They trust you now," Saleth said. "Not blindly, but enough to see the value in restraint." Calder smiled faintly. "I never thought being human could be my best advantage." "Sometimes your flaws are strengths," Saleth said. "Your stubbornness, your creativity, your willingness to act differently. That is what the mountain recognizes. That is what the galaxy will notice." The first vessels reached the edge of the plateau. Calder and Saleth watched as small landing crafts descended carefully, not daring to disturb the mountain unnecessarily. Humans emerged first, scientists, diplomats, and a few security personnel. They moved cautiously, hands raised in greeting, eyes scanning the terrain but showing respect. Behind them, other species watched from the ships, their movements slow or careful. Calder stepped forward, his boots crunching softly in the snow. He raised his hand in greeting. "You've come far," he said. "This world is not open to control. It belongs to those who live in harmony with it." The lead scientist stepped forward, nodding. "We understand, Mr. Roke. We have seen what happens when force meets respect. You and the envoy have shown the galaxy a new way to interact with living worlds." Calder studied them, seeing doubt and curiosity mixed in their expressions. "This is not a lesson in obedience," he said. "It's a lesson in understanding, respect, and choice. That is how humans survive here, and that is how they can survive everywhere else." Saleth moved slightly, and Calder noticed the subtle shift in the air. The mountains seemed to respond, energy rippling softly through the stone beneath their feet. He did not need to ask what she was doing. He could feel it. The scientists and diplomats watched, intrigued and cautious. They had expected negotiation, perhaps force. Instead, they saw humans standing with a living planet, guided by an envoy who understood it fully. "You have convinced them," Calder said quietly to Saleth. "Not yet," she replied. "We have only begun. True change comes slowly, not through a single act, but through repeated choices. They will remember this moment." A ship from the noble's fleet appeared above the mountains, distant and small in the sky. Calder recognized the design immediately. Its engines glinted, reflecting the sunlight like a warning. The noble himself must have sent it to observe, to reassess. Calder did not flinch. "They've come to see if we are still human," he said. Saleth's eyes brightened faintly. "And if they see clearly, they will learn that humans act differently when they choose to." The noble's vessel hovered, silent and cold. Calder stepped forward, his voice carried clearly across the mountains, amplified through the sensors. "This is Calder Roke. Step forward only with respect. Any action of aggression against this world or the envoy will be met with consequences. Observe or leave, your choice." The noble's ship remained still, but the tension in the air was palpable. Calder could feel the pulse of the mountain, steady but alert. It was alive, watching, waiting. "They understand," Saleth said softly. "They see that we are not easy prey. That we do not yield to intimidation." Calder nodded. "They'll learn that, yes, but they may test it anyway." The next hours were quiet. No attack, no sudden movements. The mountain maintained a subtle rhythm, responding to every signal, every shift in energy. Calder and Saleth observed, not just to defend, but to communicate with the world that had become their ally. By midday, the noble's ship withdrew, returning to the horizon, and the coalition vessels followed suit, maintaining a respectful distance. Humans had acted without force, relying on the combination of judgment, presence, and respect for life. Calder turned to Salith. "You think this will last?" "For a time," she said. "But humans have made their mark. The world will remember you, and others will too." Calder looked at the mountains, their ridges glowing faintly with the energy that only Salith could sense. It was as if the planet itself acknowledged their choices. They had stood firm, but not with violence alone. They had acted as guardians, not conquerors. News traveled fast. Human settlements on distant planets transmitted messages of what had happened. Reports highlighted Calder Roke's courage, the mountain's subtle power, and Salith's guidance. They spoke not of conflict, but of choice, of restraint, and of understanding. In the following days, Calder and Salith continued to patrol the ridges. They inspected sensor lines, reinforced shelter walls, and monitored the horizon. Ships passed, sometimes stopping to observe, sometimes sending small messages. Each interaction strengthened the growing reputation of humans as allies of worlds, protectors rather than owners. "You've changed something," Calder said one evening, as they watched the sun set behind distant peaks. The sky was a blend of soft pinks and deep blues, snow reflecting the colors like a mirror. Salith nodded. "We have begun to show them that strength is more than force. That is a rare lesson." Calder considered that. "It feels like more than a lesson. It feels like hope." "Yes," Salith said. "Hope and patience. That is the power of humanity when it chooses wisely." The next weeks passed with fewer signals from distant fleets. Diplomats and scientists visited occasionally, seeking to learn, to understand, and to witness the mountain and its envoy. Calder found that humans were capable of surprising restraint, even among those who sought to claim power. He began to see that the galaxy itself might shift, guided not only by force but by careful, deliberate choices. One night, as stars emerged in the clear sky, Calder and Salith stood together on the ridge. The mountain hummed beneath them, a constant reminder of their bond and its living presence. "What will happen now?" Calder asked. Salith looked at the horizon, at the distant signals that glimmered faintly. "Humans will continue to surprise. Some will try to dominate, some will learn. Those who learn will change the galaxy," Calder smiled. "So we keep standing, and teaching, and listening." "Yes," Salith said, "that is how worlds and people survive together." Far above, ships passed silently, watching and learning. The noble's fleet did not return. Others hesitated to challenge the humans and the mountain they had come to understand. The galaxy had seen a new kind of strength, not one born of fear, but of principle, patience, and awareness. Calder and Salith stayed on the ridge as dawn broke again, the sun spilling gold and silver across the peaks. The mountain beneath them pulsed gently, alive and aware, in rhythm with the choices they had made. Calder understood something he had never realized before. Survival was not just about endurance or force. It was about connection, understanding, and standing for what is right. "Do you ever wonder how far this will reach?" Calder asked. Salith looked at him with a faint smile. "Far enough that humans are seen differently, far enough that others will pause before acting against them. That is all that matters." Calder nodded, feeling the weight and promise of the words. For the first time, he realized that he had not only protected Salith and the mountain, but had also helped redefine what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of power and ambition. The wind swept past them, soft now, carrying the quiet strength of the mountains, the living pulse of the world, and the presence of an envoy who would not be owned. Calder and Salith stood together, side by side, not as conquerors, not as slaves, but as guardians. And far beyond the mountains, across stars and planets, the galaxy began to recognize humanity in a new light, not as a species that conquered worlds, but as one that could stand with them, listen to them, and defend them. The living mountain hummed softly beneath their feet, steady and strong, a partner in a future that stretched far beyond the frozen peaks. Calder looked at Salith, then at the horizon, and realized that they had done more than survive. They had begun to shape a legacy that would last. And in that quiet, powerful moment, Calder knew that whatever challenges would come, he and Salith, along with the mountain, would face them together, showing the galaxy what humans could truly be: resilient, wise, and unyielding when it mattered most. The first dawn of a new era in the galaxy was not marked by battle or bloodshed, but by the strength of choice, the courage to stand, and the power to protect what truly mattered. Calder and Salith remained vigilant, their eyes on the horizon, hearts aligned with the living mountain, ready to face whatever the universe would bring next.